Are you wondering what the best part about being an airline pilot is? Or wonder, what will people say when they find out you're an airline pilot? I'm going to tell you my 5 favorite things about flying for a living. Coming up. Check ride coming up? And are you looking for a way to make passing even easier? Whether you're learning to fly and studying for your PPL or private pilot license, or you're getting a new type rating, the method I'll teach you in this video works. And I'll explain to you the science behind it. Coming up. Are you considering learning to fly and getting your PPL or private pilot license? In this video, I talk about flight training, working with your flight instructor, your very first solo flight, the equipment and gear that you'll need in order to be successful, and how to pass your first aviation exam, known as a check ride. Coming up. Fly or you're an experienced airline pilot, crosswind landings are a part of our daily job. In this video, I'm going to show you the mental math that I use when calculating my crosswind component. Coming up. Becoming an airline pilot or even a private pilot in flight school is passing flight training check rides. In this video, I'm going to talk about what you do after you fail a check ride. Coming up. In this video, if you couldn't figure it out from the photo, I'm going to be talking about the pilot shortage. And hopefully my opinion doesn't piss off too many people. Coming up. Air travel and being a flight attendant used to be like this.
Starry-eyed once I get you.
And now it's more like this. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what the pilots are going to expect from you and the magic phrase that will always get their attention and make them stop what they're doing. Coming up. The pilot pay for an international airline pilot at a U.S. carrier? When you find out what a senior captain makes, you may be like,
sweet God and baby Jesus.
coming up. Make the jump to the regional airlines and get your first airline pilot job. But how do you choose which regional to pick? It's different for everybody. In this video, I talk about the 3 most important factors to consider when you're choosing your regional airline pilot job. Coming up. Pilot interview coming up. Preparation is key. And whether it's the first pilot job interview of your career or what you hope will be the last one in aviation, the tips in this video will help. Coming up. Making a career change at 30 or even 40 and wondering, am I too old to go to flight school and become a pilot? Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about in this video. Coming up. I'm going to tell you how I take every goal and work backwards to achieve it. Coming up. Claiming they have the best route and the best program and the best way for you to complete your flight training. In this video, I'm going to break down the different types of flight schools and how they work. Coming up. Training for air traffic control is a huge part of flight school. Yet I hear some airline pilots on the radio and it makes me want to say, shut up! I'll explain to you how to improve for free. Coming up. Flight school can be one of the most stressful parts of how to become a pilot. In this video, I'm going to cover 5 points you should consider when you're choosing your flight school. Coming up.
To become a pilot, you need to learn a whole new vocabulary. And then if you decide to become an airline pilot, it's another set of words that you have to learn. In this video, I'm going to tell you some of the key words and phrases that you'll need when you go to the airlines. Coming up.
Plane crash investigation video, Hollywood vs. reality. It's about a FedEx executive who ends up in an airplane crash and then survives on a deserted island. I'll explain it all. Coming up.
Different than most jobs because you spend hours together in a very small room, and the last thing you want to do is get into a discussion with someone that makes you want to say, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills! So in this video, I'm going to go over 3 topics I try to avoid on the flight deck at all costs. Coming up.
Hard work, you've finally been hired by the airlines as a first officer. But now what? How do you prepare for your airline pilot training? What is day 1 gonna be like? I'm going to explain all of that. Coming up. Explain how a pilot make an announcement like, ladies and gentlemen from the flight deck, this is your captain speaking. I realize that we're leaving about 30 minutes late, but we're gonna do everything we can to make that up in flight. And you wonder, well, why aren't we just always arriving 30 minutes early if you can just make it up in flight? I'm going to explain it all. Coming up. Flying the Boeing 747
or a Boeing 747 flight simulator becomes a lot easier when you understand when and why to use the buttons on the flight deck. The most used panel is called the MCP, the Mode Control Panel, and I'm going to explain how that works coming up. Do you feel flight turbulence make you scared to fly? Or have you ever thought, I wonder if the pilots are scared? I'm going to explain to you why it doesn't bother me and what I listen for when I'm a passenger in the back. Coming up. How a jet engine works? It's a lot simpler than you might think. I'll explain the magic. Coming up. Wondered how pilots find an airport, or more importantly, a runway, when there's bad weather or clouds? I'm going to explain something called the Instrument Landing System. Coming up. A pilot medical exam or flight physical makes some people really nervous, especially if you haven't done it before. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what to expect. Coming up. Ever looked up in the sky and seen an airplane's contrails like this and wondered, how do the pilots not hit each other? It's probably not what you think. I'll explain it all. Coming up. And the turboprop are the two main engines that power commercial aircraft, and they have a lot in common, but I'm going to explain the differences. Coming up. Remake of a 1965 film called Flight of the Phoenix that came out in 2004. Today, as part of my Hollywood vs. Reality series on pilot movies, we're going to see just how realistic it was. Coming up. Had a 747 hard landing like this, or felt like the pilots had a crash landing and thought, what the hell is going on up there? I'm going to explain a few possible reasons for a very hard landing. Coming up. The Boeing 747 dead, and what will I fly next is probably one of the most common questions I get asked in the comment section below. So if you're wondering if I think the Airbus A380 or the Boeing 777 is going to replace the Queen of the Skies, I'm going to explain it all. Coming up. Knows that a pilot's job includes flying planes, but what I'm often asked is, what is a pilot's work schedule really like? I'm going to explain it all. Coming up. I've been working with flight attendants, and today I have a flight attendant YouTuber with us, Stella, who's going to tell us the 5 most annoying things that pilots do to annoy flight attendants. Coming up.
Coming up.
What if a pilot's life is what we do outside of the cockpit? And if you know a pilot's wife, there's an 80% chance she's one of 3 professions. I'll explain it all. Coming up. Act like flight attendants. Hank, oh my god. Kroofy. This is mean, but it's pretty realistic. Lately I've been commenting a lot more on Instagram, and since then people have started sending me aviation memes. So I thought, why not share them with the 7-4 crew? So, aviation memes. Coming up. I was sitting in the back of a plane, and the captain came on and made an announcement and said,
Ladies and gentlemen from the flight deck, this is your captain speaking. We didn't get off the ground in time, so we're gonna have to go back and get some more gas.
So why don't the airlines or pilots fill the gas tanks up before they leave? I'll explain it all. Coming up. Wonder why there isn't a grate or screen in front of an aircraft's engines to prevent birds from going into it? I'm going to explain it all. Coming up. Air Force One came out in 1997. It's a film where terrorists take over the US president's Boeing 747. Today I'm going to do a Hollywood versus reality on the film Air Force One.
Get off my plane.
Coming up. This idiot talks like he's been in a plane crash before. He doesn't know. What? 12 months of mean YouTube comments. Coming up. Pilots always report UFOs? I'll explain it all. Coming up. Are your pilots ever scared when they're flying you? I'll explain it all. Coming up. The 7-4 crew really loved the last aviation memes video that I did. And since then, on Instagram, I've been getting a lot of new ones sent to me. So, aviation memes, numero dos. Coming up. Pilot lands too fast or too far down the runway, you could have been in a plane crash, with your aircraft sliding into a road or off of the airport and into the water.
Oh, hell no.
But there's a technology that's already in place at many airports to prevent that from happening. I'll explain it all. Coming up. Why am I not in a hotel? Why am I not in my uniform? Why am I in Barcelona? I'll explain it all. Coming up. And cabin crew travel anywhere in the world for free? Kind of, but it's not as easy as you think. I'll explain it all. Coming up. Really flying your airplane? The pilot or the autopilot? I'll explain it all.
Coming up, my Instagram at 74gear. So if you keep sending these, I'll keep making these. Meme 3. Coming up. Most passengers believe that when the oxygen masks fall from the ceiling on an aircraft, you're breathing oxygen from an oxygen tank. But really, it's chemically generated oxygen. It's fake oxygen.
Are you joking with me right now?
I'll explain it all. Coming up. No, we're going fast. No. That's a really horrible start to this game. Coming up. Start 2.
We've lost engine 1. And engine 2 is no longer on fire.
Hollywood versus reality. Coming up. Holy crap! I was not expecting that. Craziest aviation stories, 2019. Coming up. A bachelor pilot is very different from one who's married. So what are the best things about being a bachelor and a pilot? I'm going to explain it all. Coming up. Get dehydrated during or after a long flight?
Because you were drunk?
Well, not exactly. I'll explain it all. Coming up, if you can. Hollywood versus reality.
We'll be traveling at 6,000 miles per hour at an altitude of 300 feet.
Coming up. My videos are family friendly. This video will not be. If you watch this channel with your kids, this series, Cockpit Confessionals, is not one that you want to watch with them. I'm going to be talking about flight crew members doing things that involve nudity, things that sent people to jail.
We're going streaky! Yeah!
So this is one that you're going to want to wait until they go to sleep to watch. Coming up. I did that flight sim game on my iPad last year. I had 1 or 2 people leaving comments saying, "Can you please play X-Plane 11?" So, Kelsey plays X-Plane 11. Coming up. Safest place to sit on a plane if you're worried about a crash? Well, it's probably not here. I'll explain it all. Coming up. Spectre. Hollywood. James Bond Spectre. Hollywood versus reality.
Why should I trust you?
Coming up. Confessionals Part 2.
Turn down for what?
Coming up. We'll be good. Can we come out? I know a lot of flight attendants that watch this channel that would love to be able to lock us in the flight deck. Aviation memes Part 4. Coming up. American made. Hollywood versus reality.
I was working for the CIA, the DEA, and Pablo Escobar.
Coming up. Of 1971, Dan D.B. Cooper hijacked a Boeing 727 and jumped out in the middle of night in a rainstorm. So what would the pilots have been thinking? I'll explain it all. Coming up. Hollywood versus reality.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Coming up. Pranks do pilots pull on new flight attendants? I'll explain it all. Coming up. Recently, President Trump mentioned that he was going to use the Boeing Dreamlifter to transport medical supplies. As a Boeing Dreamlifter pilot, I'm going to react to what he says. Coming up. You want to pay for your flight hours. Toilet paper. It's crazy right now what's going on with the coronavirus and everything that's happening, and the fact that this is even a meme blows my mind. Aviation memes. Number 5. Coming up. Can an ordinary untrained person land a plane? Definitely. Well, kind of. I'll explain it all. Coming up. Con Air. Hollywood versus reality.
Welcome to Con Air.
Coming up. What kind of pranks do flight instructors play on student pilots? I'll explain it all. Coming up. I'm letting you all on 7-4 crew pick your favorite flight simmer or gamer video, and I'm going to give the winners cash. I'll explain it all. Coming up. Than I thought it was going to be, and 2, I had no idea how creepy and mean and weird comments I'd get left on my YouTube channel. I told you when we hit 250,000 we would do another mean comments video, so mean comments 2. Coming up. Weeks ago I posted this rant video where I talked about how some of these large Instagram accounts are stealing your content only to sell you stuff and give you nothing back. Within 24 hours, a lot of you started sharing this video on your Instagram stories and asking me how you can shut them down. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. Coming up. Passenger 57. Hollywood versus reality.
Biggest damn Cessna I ever saw.
Coming up. Top 10 things I wish I knew before I started my aviation career? I'll explain it all. Coming up. A couple months I've been flying to Korea a lot. And in the news in the US and Korea, they've been talking about this man a lot, Kim Jong-un. And it reminded me about a few years ago when he piloted a plane. I'm not trying to repeat what happened in the interview movie, but I'm pretty sure speaking about Kim Jong-un in any way other than extremely favorable puts you on the naughty list.
You've heard the stories, huh?
With some help from the clips from the movie The Interview, I'm doing the first ever North Korea would versus reality. Coming up. In this edition of Cockpit Confessionals, I have everything from a couple of pilots that thinking they're James Bond to a pilot making a video that goes viral. And not the type of video that can go on YouTube. I'll explain it all. Coming up. They'll sign in, meet in 30, what's our van time? When's happy hour? Oh, if you have ever been part of a flight crew, you know this is exactly what happens as soon as you show up to check in. Especially if you're me, because you know I love my free breakfast. But 100%, if you do the long haul flights with a bunch of flight attendants, you know sometimes we're getting off with 15 or 16 flight attendants somewhere. This is exactly what's going on when people are checking in for breakfast. Aviation memes, number 6. Coming up. Faster when you're flying in a plane? I'll explain it all. Coming up. What is happening here? This is like the 5-second rule aviation edition where if you don't land on the runway, but you get there within 5 seconds, it still counts as an acceptable landing. Viral debrief, episode 1. Coming up. 7500. Hollywood versus reality.
Mayday, mayday, mayday! European 162!
Coming up.
Whoa! Crap. That kind of blows.
Kind of sounds like what the pilots are probably saying in the flight deck right now. Viral debrief, episode 2. Coming up. What about the 7-4 gear forum is, have a question only a pilot can answer? There's a section for that. Going plane spotting in a new city that you've never been to and want to know the best place to go or what time to show up? There's a section for that. Are you studying something in flight school and you don't understand something and need to ask somebody? There's a section for that. Are you an aviation YouTuber, can't come up with anything creative and just want to copy everything on my channel? Well, here's the secret. Most of my stuff comes from the comments and suggestions of everybody in the 7-4 crew. And guess what? There's a section for that too. There's a section for just about everything because, well, you know, it's all about aviation. And I'm taking a break from YouTube. Kind of. I'll explain it all. Coming up. Oh, that's not gonna be good. Viral debrief, number 3. Coming up. It's always the redheaded kid that's kicking people. I don't know what that's all about. You all in the 7-4 crew have been sending in a lot of aviation meme videos lately. So today we're doing aviation video memes. Coming up. Ooh. Viral debrief. Coming up. Pilots have a drinking and flying competition, and a pilot has a code brown situation in flight. In this episode of Cockpit Confessionals. Coming up. What? There's no way at that speed that we would bounce like that. No way. You're wrong, Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. Flight Sim 2020. Coming up. Hollywood versus reality. Coming up. A maneuver that you ever want to be in when you're flying. Viral debrief. Coming up. Here at 375 knots, a couple hundred feet off the ground, to landing with a landing score over 1.1 million? I'll show you. Coming up. It has 4 configurations of wingtips, winglets, and wing extensions. Can you beat that? Well, I mean, my plane has 4 engines. Does that count? Reading aviation threads. Coming up. Air traffic control versus pilots.
Have you been cleared into the ramp?
Okay, cleared for the ramp.
No, that was a question. Have the ramp people cleared you into the gate?
Roger, to the gate, Sean 981.
Coming up. Hollywood versus reality. Coming up. Viral debrief. Coming up.
And a 747 at St. Bart's? We're gonna find out. Coming up. Can't really tell if this is a guy or a girl, but you have to appreciate at the end of the day how much extra attention they're giving to the engines. Guys, you know what I'm saying. Aviation memes. Coming up. Control versus pilots.
Nobody clears you through the Bravo but me.
Then clear me through.
No.
Yes.
You're an asshole.
Coming up. 1984. Hollywood versus reality.
The way I fly, they will never find us.
I forgot to tell you.
What?
Radar.
Will they shoot at us?
Coming up. Debrief. Coming up. Captain accidentally flashes 2 brand new flight attendants, a hooker tricks herself to get into my hotel room, and a bunch more in this episode of Cockpit Confessionals. Coming up. We have a way to once and for all prove whether the Earth is flat or not. I'll explain it all. Coming up.